Stop it. All right. Welcome to Cinema Rabbit Trails, episode 11.
11.
Yes. We have two very special guests with us. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Starting with you, man.
I'm Cameron Banks. I love Jesus, and I build things out of wood.
Okay.
He is.
That is a solid intro. All right.
Yeah.
Top that. Let's go.
I don't know about topping that, but my name is Brian Gray, and currently I just work and headed to Thailand soon to serve God and serve people.
Well, tell them how long you're going on a mission trip for.
6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
I'll be there for a while.
Do you know that people who play sports in Thailand, there's no winners or losers?
That's just sad.
They only tie.
I get
That's
it.
Yeah. I saw that one go a mile away.
I didn't.
I'm actually sad that I missed that.
I was surprised.
amazing.
I was like, okay.
Anyway. Okay. All right. So the movie we just watched was the movie Wonder.
It's going to be puns galore, by the way.
Yeah, there was a lot of puns in this one. Anyway. Yeah, so we just watched Wonder. You guys mind if I give a quick synopsis? Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you saw the trailers. It was if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching the movie. There probably will be spoilers throughout our conversation here. But anyway, the story goes: we're introduced to a young kid. We only see him with the space helmet on, but we soon learn that he has a facial deformity that happened from some things at birth. He's had surgeries, all this stuff. But yeah, he has several severe facial deformities due to some genetics. And
his name's Augie, right?
Yes, his name is Augie. He is homeschooled up until 5th grade. He's now about to be launched into his first public school, or prep school. See, I told you, puns. Anyway. You just got... Now you're not in your game tonight.
Yeah, have some water out.
Yes. I can make some coffee if you want.
No, this is good.
Okay. So yeah,
Purified.
He has his mom and his dad, very sweet family. He has an older sister as well, who's more kind of the quiet type. It's very interesting because we actually get to the trailer suggested that this is all about Augie, which it does focus on him mostly, but it's very it delves into like every single character, even a character that we don't get introduced to until like maybe midway through the movie. Like we actually really see the older sister's best friend. She kind of detaches, and we get to see her side of the story as well briefly. And it's just really cool. They focus on like each individual character and show their side of the story from start to finish, mostly until it kind of cuts back to Augie as the central focus. But there's a lot of bullying involved with Augie, obviously with the facial deformity. Very cool friendships kind of come and go and redevelop, and we see the family relationship evolve very dramatically, but very well, very interestingly. There's also a dog. Spoiler alert, the dog dies. Anyway.
How dare you?
Yes. Anyway, very long story short, watch the movie. Basically, go watch the movie. Very, very well done. I thought there were definitely some scenes that...
I was not expecting, kind of what you said. I was not expecting them. I was thinking it's just going to be Augie's story. Yeah. I was thinking it's going to be very depressing, hard to watch film because it's depicting some good things in real life. But I was amazed how lighthearted it could be at times. But they delved into everyone's story. So I was very impressed with how well characters were written, built, and how you're like, wow, everyone actually has a backstory. And that enforces the way they live their lives, like real life. Yeah. We all act on histories.
And every backstory still had a focus on Augie, though.
Yes.
So there was definitely, even like the sister's, best friend, Miranda. Yeah, just how like she, later on in her story that they show, she calls Augie and just like, hey, I miss you. I wanted to talk to you, not who was the girl who was my best friend, but I want to talk to you. How are you doing? What's going on? Tell me about your new school. It's like
she really felt like it was like her brother.
Exactly, yeah. And there's something else going on there. Again, watch the movie. There's more details to come. But yeah, that's that was really, really cool moment for me. That was other than the dad talking to Augie near the end. That was probably my favorite moment. It's like, oh man, that's just like if I were in Augie's situation, that would be like the most encouraging thing that could happen to me. Bar a few other situations like happen throughout the movie. It's very encouraging, but that would be just to have someone that you grew up with, like randomly call. He's like, I was thinking about you. How are you doing? I want to know what's going on. Like that's really, really cool and rarely happens.
Yeah.
So
I mean, before we jump into this, like first impressions about the film, like obviously we all really enjoyed it a lot. Definitely some tears were welling up watching a movie like this. But any initial thoughts before we really jump into deep discussion on things?
I think it was just as serious as it should have been, and just as fun as it should have been.
Yeah.
I think they could have, like, I really saw the whole someone dying part coming. I knew they were going to do that. I'm glad that it was the dog and not one of the main characters. Like, I was just gearing up on, like, they're going to kill someone, someone's going to die, and it's going to become all about that. And we're going to have to go through Bridge to Terabithia all over again. Just, please don't kill off a main character.
Perfect analogy.
And they killed off the dog, and I was like, okay, that's fine. You know, we had to do the death, and then we got back to the movie. And
yeah,
it
there are
served its
opportunities
purpose.
for them to take the easy way out in terms of how the film is structured and all that. Yes.
And I think, like, the death mechanic is an easy way to, like, try to it's like a cheap deepening of the plot, and it dramatizes the movie when you feel like you need it, and I don't think that's what they did with the dog. So
you're saying there's a death mechanic in the film one?
I may be saying that.
Oh gosh, yeah, he's a tool then.
See, what I heard there was that death is cheap.
I'm saying it can be.
Okay.
I'm not saying it always is.
That's like
I'm
a very existential concept.
I would think though. I would make the argument.
We won't
though,
go there. That's not worth diving into at this
I will
moment,
just say
so.
this, just briefly, like how death does create meaning because like people sacrifice themselves and it's like, oh wow, this is a real situation. This is a real.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is what kind of Marvel struggles with is they kill off very few characters. Infinity War, that's a different kind of area, but. Yeah, it's a different area, but it's like okay, if there's really no death, there really are no real stakes.
Okay, well the dog didn't sacrifice himself.
He did not.
So it's not relatable here. So this isn't Airbud or anything or Lassie. Okay, so all right.
Oh man, don't do that to me. Oh, I could hear that cloud. Okay, anyway.
Patch Adams.
Oh,
That's
man.
another. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna go down that road. But
This isn't my dog Skip. All right.
But very enjoyable movie,
Yeah.
very believable, and just very heartwarming. Just heartwarming, but you really tend to believe the best about people. And but yeah,
tugged at the heartstrings in a pretty genuine way.
yes, agreed. But yeah, let's jump right into it. First thing we want to talk about. What's the quote
The quote?
at the beginning?
Oh, you're talking about the
First day in
Yeah.
philosophy class for fifth
Okay,
graders.
so there is a scene, somehow at this school, there's like a philosophy class for fifth graders, which, man, I want to know where that school is so I can put my kids in. But anyway, so the teacher writes these quotes on the chalkboard every time we were introduced to this class, and they're called precepts, and we don't really get to know like how those are expanded upon. They just are introduced, and then we're told to believe them or think about them, and maybe it was suggested that possibly the characters model the precept later in the film.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one they said was, if given the choice between doing the right thing or the kind thing, you should always choose the kind thing. And that was written on the blackboard.
Was it? I thought it was
That was
saying
right.
being right.
Okay,
Well,
it's
close
essentially
enough.
the
Yeah,
same
if
thing.
you have a choice between being
Choice
right
between
and being
right
kind.
and being kind, then
Right.
choose to be
Well,
kind.
doing the
Yeah.
right thing. I mean, but being,
Yeah, same
okay.
thing.
Yeah.
It's a little different. So
Yeah.
being right and being kind.
Just
So.
making sure.
And yeah, that's again within certain contexts. I think that's a correct quote, but you have to take that with a huge grain of salt, more like a bucket of salt, because there's definitely some areas where it's like, okay, there's like speak the truth in love. Like yes, always be kind, but sometimes the truth isn't kind, but it needs to be told.
You can't handle the truth.
Okay, I can see that.
So
I would agree.
that's- Yeah.
I think there needs to be a difference between, this distinguishing between being nice and being kind. Being nice would be like, just being gentle with people.
Right.
And we're very nice with children, but being kind is if I care about you as a person, I'm going to do things like a surgeon. A surgeon can be very kind.
Yeah.
But if they need to do surgery on you, that's not going to be a very pleasant thing.
Right.
But if it's the right thing,
Yeah.
telling the truth, that is a kind thing. to
I
do.
would say the difference between being nice and being kind is nice is like I'm doing this out of obligation. Kindness would be out of benevolence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
But oh, go ahead.
real quick for me, so the part of the movie where Augie, is Jack his best friend's name?
Yeah.
For a little
Yeah,
while in
yeah.
the movie, he let him copy off his test. Would you say that's being kind or being nice, based off your definition?
ethically that's questionable, but
Yeah,
I would say I'd just say it's
well,
being nice. Just
Well,
Yeah,
I
I'd say
think that
it's
was the
nice,
scene
but-
where they're trying to display the precept, right?
Yeah,
Right.
So, I
but
would've
that
said-
wasn't right.
Within
so
that
was wrong.
worldview,
Yeah.
what was the, that was not right, and so was it kind? I think that's what they're trying to get us to.
Well, from his friend's perspective, wait, was it Will? Is it Will?
Jack Will.
It is Jack.
Jack will.
Oh,
His
Jack
last
Will.
name is Will.
Okay, that's where I got
Okay.
it from. Okay, so Jack, you see him. Do you remember how he talked to his mom? And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to be nice to this kid," or his mom suggested, or kind of helped him see this guy as someone who's also struggling, just like he is. So in that sense, you could say he started off with a general niceness, and then he gradually recognized that this is something that he valued, and he really invested in it. So then you could start to see that kindness start to enter that picture.
You could actually argue that scene is actually, like, I disagree with it, but I think it's actually perfect. Because in a Christian worldview, because it shows that humans are naturally evil. Yes, we have an amazingly nice kid, but his view of benevolence was skewed right off the bat. Without being taught, he did the wrong thing. Yet he was still he was definitely a very nice kid, well educated. He was a benevolent kid, but he committed a wrongful act out of benevolence, and therefore he skewed it, and therefore. Take that logic, we are inclined towards sin. We are sinful creatures. And even in our kindness, we can often still sin.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yet eventually down the road, you saw how good things came of it. In that
True,
they had that
true.
connection at first. It doesn't justify the act, but
Right.
it does bring them together in important ways.
That's true.
Or, I don't know if we want to go down this rabbit trail. Sorry, it's my first time on.
What's that poster doing
but-
there? I've never
Yeah.
seen it.
But it's okay. So 4 of us at this table have been homeschooled at some point in our education careers.
It wasn't the
And-
homeschool one.
What's that?
It wasn't the. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, okay. How do I want to?
We've all been hybrid. We're all hybrids in one way or
Yeah,
another,
yeah,
so we
yeah.
kind of can all
Um,
bring something to the table regarding school
so-
systems.
Our culture, or maybe the American school system, presents the idea that like cheating on a test like that is wrong. But then again, Jack could have still learned the right answers through that. Like how you could take that a step back and say, well, it's wrong because we said it's wrong, but is it really wrong because
Right.
he's still being taught the truth? He's still being taught what's correct in that setting. He might have walked away with the knowledge of whatever science test it was in one way or another. It was just not the way in which the school system dictated what's right or wrong.
Yeah, but it's not implied that Jack learned what was on the test. So,
But hanging out with Augie, though, he's a much more. Being that they became friends, I'm sure that they just would talk about science, and so
true,
that
still does not
elevated.
justify the action.
No, yeah, no.
Yeah, but I'm
So-
sure sometimes when you're in that situation and someone's sort of feeding you the answers, you're not really learning how to fish for yourself.
Exactly.
You know,
That's
right.
that's the biggest. That's
Right.
what the theft actually is in that
Yeah,
scenario. Like
right.
normally it'd be like you're stealing someone else's hard work. This was kind of flipped to where Augie was robbing Jack of the opportunity to work to earn what he or to work for what he should earn. I guess
Or
it's-
to fail into success.
yes.
But but still, I mean, these are. Yeah, I agree with that, and it's at the same time though, it's like these are kids. They're kind of figuring out how the
Yeah.
world works and what's right, wrong. But like they just like, oh, he needs help with the test.
Yeah. The one thing, and they could have solved this with one quick scene, but the one thing that failed to, or that, again, it didn't kill it, but that's the only word I have in my brain right now, but killed the suspension of disbelief throughout the film was that this film takes place in current time. None of these kids are on their phones. They're very aware of what's going on around them, and they're very. They seem to talk very eloquently.
Yeah.
Just if they had solved it with like one thing, like okay, if they showed as the kids are walking into school, they put their phones in a like a slot they were supposed
True.
to keep them
Good
in.
point.
Would have solved everything and given one extra like nice moral punch into the film. Just like you put your phones away and you observe what's going on around you, you will learn exponentially faster.
Yeah.
Not bad. Not bad.
I just
It could have been added. I don't know if it would have added much significance.
Right, no, not significant at least, but
But
it
just
would
talking about it in a
little
modern
extra.
in our
Right, to
modern
describe,
context.
yes.
That's not a real. It's not quite as real as it
they
could be.
have made a statement either way about our current culture.
This
They
is
just
true.
haven't been maybe overt about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the question is whether or not they should have been.
Yeah, I don't think it was super important, but it would have kind of been cool to just throw that.
I didn't think about
thing
that,
in
to be
there.
honest with you, but that was such a refreshing thing because you're right. Kids walk around and they're all about their phone or their iPad or whatever, and these kids were not.
You
like
don't
that.
need to make a direct emphasis on it, though.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like if they see this movie, they're going to desire to share the same kindness they saw in the film.
Hopefully.
Too. So they're still exactly, and so you could still say it. That still pulls away from the phones, from the technology, just in an indirect way.
Yeah, I would hope that kids who saw this would actually be very intrigued and challenged because like a fifth grader who sees another fifth grader. I don't know how old these kids actually are. They seem like they were in the grade they were actually rolled in, but like to actually see a kid like speak that eloquently and be that observant. Like if as a fifth grader, I don't know if a current fifth grader actually have enough attention span to watch a film and pay attention to it like that. But if they did, by chance, they might be challenged to be like, how is someone my age talking like that?
Yeah. Well, they would want to identify with the main
Yeah.
characters and then
Right.
hopefully notice a difference. Like, oh, I'm not like that, or they do different things than I do, and they enjoy those things.
But I think that's a great. Actually, the cell phone thing's a great point because we're so busy looking at this, we're not even asking hard questions like, oh, what is that like? We're so distracted with the phones, we're not even able to think those kind of deep thoughts, and let alone engage in hard, trying to be friends with somebody like that, engaging in tough relationships because Jack said that was tough for him at first. He was just being nice, but then when he said, when I really got to know him, I was like, wow, he's very smart. I see that he's funny and so easy just to go to Facebook. We will never have those opportunities for those kind of relationships.
Well, that's wonder. I mean, that's what it's talking about is if the earlier technology is introduced, especially just that specifically, if it's introduced to a child at a young age, that sense of wonder is kind of lost because you're given this infinite information outside of yourself rather than exploring it yourself.
Right. Interesting, yeah.
Which is kind of what, at least with that test, what you were kind of pointing on as far as others influencing you instead of you actually learning what's put in front of you. Yeah. So there's that sense of wonder in that even as adults we should find it wondrous in our communications that everybody communicates differently, and what they can bring to the table. Yeah,
I wanted to save this question for the end, but I'm afraid I'm going to forget it because I've done that before with we get in so depthy conversations. I forget one thing I wanted to say. So. Just real quick, each of you, what was one thing that this movie challenged you about that you want to do better in your actual life?
Ooh, good question.
Whoever wants to go first.
So one thing challenge us to do better. So like a big takeaway.
Yeah, what did you take away? What's one thing you took away from the film that you want to apply to your life?
Well, for me, and I feel like I've been sort of exploring this even before I've seen this movie, just because I've been learning it here recently. Like Adam said, we each have a different personality, things that God made about us specifically that's different from anyone else. So finding the wonder in someone else or getting to know someone else for who they are and understanding the beauty in the difference of that person than from me or you or I had talked to one of my friends a long time ago and he just couldn't get past the reason why people do certain things, and I can't think of a specific situation, but I kept saying to him, believe it or not, I don't get why they're doing that either. You know how someone let me think of a issue. I learned in psychology when you're in a relationship, sometimes when women are in a relationship and they're abused, that they tend to stay in that relationship because that's all they know. So take that for instance, and you're looking on the inside at that picture, and you're just like, why doesn't she get away from that relationship? Why didn't she get out of there? And you judge her, and you're trying to understand why she doesn't do a certain thing. Well, she's a different person. She's going through different things, and it's about understanding and getting to know people and their life and the beauty of where they've, how the mother said, your face is,
it's a map of who, like your heart's a map of where you want to go in the future.
And, yeah,
the face is a map
of where you've been. Yeah. And
what about your gray hair?
Yeah.
That's from your father.
But just getting to know where people have been versus and where they want to be, or where they're trying to go with their life. And that's something I want to do better, is get to know people and really dive deep into relationships that God's given us to sort of explore and enjoy.
Well, yeah, I would agree with, because I would also want to leap off of that too, and saying that, I want to experience that too, but also just more contentment in the now, because life keeps moving, and there's so much movement with it, but yet we're not called to sit in our cynicism or what we perceive the world to be always. We actually are there, and we experience people now. And if we can meet them where they are in their journey and find the wonder in it and run with that, I mean, it's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. It's spontaneous, but I mean, especially as a Christian, what more could the Lord do with that? If He's in control of all things, then He could use our spontaneity. He can work out pretty incredible things just meeting where someone is now.
Absolutely.
Are you guys next?
You want to go?
I'm sorry, I got a thought. If you're ready to go, it's up to you.
I'll go.
Go for it.
Okay, I was about to call a thumb war.
I think feel free to disagree with me if you guys do, but I think the main idea this movie is trying to communicate is that people are not as they seem, or not always as they seem, and that appearance or first impression of any kind, I mean, it's the classic, don't judge a book by its cover, right? And one thing we talked about before we started the camera rolling is that every character that gets gets their name on the
backstory tree.
Yeah, that gets a backstory. Except Augie, every one of those characters is not as they were initially presented. But Augie is. So they present his character, and then throughout the movie, that presentation is fulfilled. Every other character is presented after him, and then when you get to their backstory, it reveals something different about them. Oh, that character wasn't exactly as I thought they were.
Well, the bully, it's interesting. The one bully did get a backstory.
Right.
So you don't get to find out what his backstory is, but you can
he sort of got one.
You can allude to it, but you don't. Yeah.
Can I disagree with you real quick before we move on to go down this rabbit trail? I think there's definitely some of don't judge a book by its cover, kind of the classic cliche, but I think they twisted it a little bit. Don't judge yourself by the cover other people paint you as. Mm.
Yeah,
because Augie was the one who was...
put that on a quote book.
Because Augie was the one who was trying to... He was letting himself be defined by his face. And we tend to define ourselves by our characteristics, and we want it... Why do we want to know what people think about us? So we can know how to be permanently. Mm. That's why we look for that in other people. We look for approval in other people, because if we know what the approval is, then we want to keep that permanent. We know what to keep of ourselves. When... again, I don't mean to sound there's definitely things about people that are about ourselves that often need to change. I mean, I make tons of mistakes. I have plenty of problems and everything that need to change. I'm not talking I should accept my problems and be okay with that. That's not what I'm saying. But the fundamental, how do I put this? God created us all differently. We all have different DNA. We all have different fingerprints. I mean, we're all
uniquely.
Yes, we're all uniquely and wonderfully made. Hey, wonder. Wonderfully made. But I don't think that counts as a pun. But yeah, I mean, there's God made us all for different reasons, and we all have our own unique characteristics. And people tend to judge others by superficial standards. We tend to judge a book by its cover,
right?
Or at least first impression. I'd maybe change it to that. But that doesn't. If people like our cover, then that's where the popular kids come around. People like their cover, and that's all it is.
And that's the mask.
It's a cover. It's a mask. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if we figure out what that mask is, then we keep it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we need to actually read our own book.
And I think
figure out what needs to.
Online with what you're saying, Jack Wheel was struggling with some of that. Mm-hmm. When it was Halloween and he made fun of Augie, you could see he sort of shifted back into his popular crowd.
Yep.
And he wanted to please them or get their approval of what he was doing for a brief moment.
Yeah, and I think Jack Will is one of the coolest characters, and it's funny that we're doing this on Mother's Day because Jack's mother pushed him to hang out with Augie, and that changed him. And I think that's something that I've heard from like several I don't know what to call them, contemporary modern parents, I guess is the way I'd put it. A lot of young adults who are like, they don't want to they're afraid of their kids. I've seen this from like psychologists and therapists who go on interviews. They talk about like, I get a lot of parents who say they're afraid of their kids and their disapproval and things like that. It's like, you're not supposed to be your kid's friend. You're there to push them. If they hate you for you pushing them, like if you're an absent parent and they hate you, that's not good. But if you're an active parent in your kids' lives and they hate you, at least that early age, you might be doing it right.
Well, I'm saying it's being nice and being kind.
Yeah.
Being
right and being kind.
A kind parent is going to push their child. A nice parent's going to be their friend.
Yeah.
They don't need a friend. They need someone who's going to love them unconditionally and push them when they need it.
Yep,
same with Augie's character. Same with Augie's mom, too. She did that throughout. I just love when he walked off the table after his first day of school. He was so upset. Just left them. They asked how his day was, and he just stormed off. I can't remember what he said. I think he said, why does...
He said my day was good, and they tried to get him to expound on that, and they're just like, why can't I just say it's good?
Be good?
Like everyone
That's right.
else.
Yeah. So then and then she goes in and says, you don't walk away from the table like that. And it's not a scoldy little mom way of saying, hey, don't do that. But it's actually a way of saying, hey, let's talk about this. I'm trying to include you in the conversation because I value you the most.
Yeah. And it's funny because it was also it was Augie's family who really pushed him to be the best version of himself. It wasn't his friends. His friends
But isn't that always the case though? Like our family should be the ones who push us.
Well, and that's I think I think that's accurate. Like our family is supposed to be the ones who actually pushes us to be the best version of ourselves. That and Christ, of course. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. But in the contemporary modern world, that's not necessarily cultural standard. So I'll kind of talk about it in this form, but with that in mind. But when the family was pushing Augie to be his best, and friends came about because he stayed his best. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a cliche that's pressed upon, like, again, with you don't judge a book by its cover. Whenever you there's a premise that goes along with that, as in we're supposed to change other people's views of us. And this movie kind of flipped that on its head. Augie didn't try to change other people's opinion of him. People had to get pushed to change their views of somebody else. They had to get challenged in their own personal lives. It wasn't like you say like any of you guys look at me as like I'm dumb, okay? And you think I'm dumb. It's like I have all this like something to say, David?
No.
So, but if I was trying to get you guys to think that I was smart, then I mean I would.
You're gonna overcompensate.
I'm gonna overcompensate, and it's probably gonna make you guys like me less. For one thing, but let's say I was really good at it, it would still be maybe a false front or something like that. I don't know. It would be, at the least influential side, at least, it would put a lot of anxiety on me. Yeah. At the least effective scenario, I just get a lot of anxiety and nothing changes. But in this case, again, it was just like it was people pushing other people in their own lives, the people that they were close to. Jack, his mom pushed him. Really, it was circumstances that kind of pushed Miranda, or maybe just lack of people pushing her. That just kind of that circumstance alone pushed her to go back to the people that cared for her. All these different things. It was
I think Justin I would say Justin pushed her.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Definitely.
Because she was motivated to act dishonestly with a lot of people, including her best friend and her family, right?
Yeah.
And then, in the end, she made a very interesting choice that could almost be categorized as dishonesty, but, like, for the benefit of her friend and her family.
Also, by the way, that was good film for mother figures because it is Mother's Day.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
That was amazing.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to all our moms.
You are incredible.
That was
mothers
great,
out there.
You had two really good mother figures in this film.
So, if I may, I just wanted to say my takeaway.
Yes, please do.
We rabbit trailed. Miranda was the character that I like I made a judgment pretty much right away with her character, and I decided, oh, this is the character I'm going to dislike. And she's the villain, and all right, cool, you know. And they really proved me wrong. I disagree with a lot of her choices, but I can sympathize with why she felt the way she did, and so like my takeaway is I don't want to make that judgment so quickly, and I want to, you know, as you said, like get to know the person behind the mask, you know, and they even used the pink hair like.
That was a good artistic choice. Very forcefully prove a point.
You see this girl and you think like, oh man, she's a jerk.
She's this type.
She went to summer camp and
yeah.
she slept with the boy or whatever, and now she's a jerk. And it's like, oh, okay, I hate her now, you know. And then like you find out, oh, that's not what happened. She's very deeply hurt by some very deeply hurt people who don't care for her and don't care for her well. And then she is like irresponsibly introduced to alcohol underage. And then she has like no one to step in and say like, what are you doing? Like, how are you? And then like no one even knows that she's lying. Throughout the rest of the movie, no one even ever actually knows and addresses it. Like she just gets to go through and do all these things, and it's hard. It's a hard situation. Hers is probably the hardest. I mean, I don't know, Augie, but it's just I really feel for her character, so I want to. As a result of a lot of the situations and scenarios in this movie, I want to have less prejudice towards people that I meet. And another thought that I had was interesting is Augie does to everyone else what he dislikes about how they treat him. He does the shoes thing, you know. He looked down at all their shoes and made a judgment about all of them, you know. He's a stuck-up rich kid. He's got hand-me-down shoes, you know, and she's crazy, and he was right about some of those things.
It's funny, the young fifth grader girl who was all drama and Broadway. She was the only cliche that didn't change.
She was such a plot device, man, such a plot device.
But that's funny. The bully, he was a cliche, but he changed. Miranda was a cliche, but she changed. I think, as far as I can think of. That little drama girl was the only one who didn't change, but she was a cliche the entire
movie. We don't
movie.
know that though. That's the thing.
That's
like
true.
he just said that, but we don't actually hear anything else. About her
So we're
ever.
still being judgmental, guys.
Let's watch it again! Oh crap, here we go. Okay, so we're just past 30 minutes, so we need to wrap up. So David, what was your big takeaway?
Well, that's actually kind of good to jump off what you're talking. Wait, what?
I know, these to go by fast.
I don't. To kind of jump off what you said. As I was watching, I had a thought. And I wrote it down. I said everyone wants the opportunity to be genuine. And while that's challenging, what I want to do is I try not to put on masks in front of people because I'm not good at it. And so I just try to be myself as I'm figuring out what that means. But I have a tendency to be like really like quick, and I'm just trying to just busy. But I'm trying to learn to slow down and be like, you know, I think what everyone appreciated about Augie was he has no mask to hide behind. Like he has to be himself.
Except on Halloween.
Yes.
Right.
Which is why he likes Halloween. But he has to learn how to come to grips with himself, and that has made him a such stronger person that this is who I am, and you have to deal with it. And people who are good at hiding themselves, they can hide away for years, and then when they finally have to confront themselves, they're broken. They don't know where to start. And so I think what people love, and that's why people were rallying around Augie, is they were seeing that he was genuine, and that brought out in themselves the desire. They gave him the permission to be genuine. And ultimately, I think it was St. Erasmus who said, the glory of God is man fully alive. And it's the idea that God wants us to be men and women who are fully alive, fully ourselves. Because, was it Miranda who, she was lying. Did she get away with it? Yeah. But inside she would say, I'm dead. You know, we're only as sick as the secrets we keep. I mean, she's just like, I'm living a lie. I can't live like this anymore. I want to be seen and known, and people to see me for who I am. And that scares us, but it's what we need. So my takeaway is I want to learn to walk more genuinely in front of people, not trying to impress people, but just being genuine, and then thus giving them the permission to be genuine as well.
That's good.
That's very good.
Really like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
All right, Jerry. What's your big take? Your big
Oh,
take?
oh
Since
yeah.
you
I
posed
guess
the
I have to
question.
go.
It better be good because
So-
we've had a lot of build up here.
Yeah. Okay. So
No pressure,
okay,
no
I've got to
pressure.
close this out. All right, pressure's on. So I think I have 2 takeaways. Yeah, I think I have 2. Okay. So I think the first one is kind of along the lines of what most of you guys have said is just don't judge a book by its cover. Again, just it is a cliche, but yeah, just look for the wonder in people. Now one thing I to be more specific, I think I want to look for the wonder in people I already know. Because I think there's a lot of relationships I can look at, especially family relationships that I just take for granted. I think that's very easy to do, and I think there's a mask to take off from every person in my entire family and past friends, current friends, you guys too, new friends. Yes. So that's definitely one big thing. Now
I can finally take off my mask.
By the way, that was an awesome moment where, like,
Yes.
he befriends that one kid who was the bully, and he just goes off to the lakeside. He's just looking out there.
Yeah.
I was starting to tear up, and that was just
that
like,
was it.
wow,
It was
this
hard to
is
hold back
so
that one.
beautiful.
You
Yes.
imagine what he was thinking too.
I
Yeah.
have friends.
Oh,
like,
But probably something along the lines of like, man, like I've come this far, and from where I was the first day and now where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
normally
starting to realize the wonder in it all as well.
Yeah. Normally, I'd say that's a little existential for a 5th grader, but in this
Yeah.
case, this movie, they're all like.
well, I mean, it's so
existential
emotional.
philosophers
What else
at
is he
this
gonna
point.
do? I mean,
The
like,
mature
Chris.
5th graders.
They're very mature 5th graders.
yes,
Yeah.
very mature.
Oh.
Second point.
Second point is actually this is a great wrap up. So it really defines what we're doing here: finding fulfillment in fellowship. I think that's the point of this entire podcast to begin with, along with just going down every rabbit trail we possibly can in now 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes now, instead of an hour.
No one's counting, right?
So
Yeah,
why
no,
is it
kinda.
30 minutes?
I want to go to an hour.
But yeah, I'd love to go to an hour, but audience demands.
Really?
Yes.
Attention,
Right.
Attention span. Okay, but
But anyway, just finding fulfillment in fellowship and family. If you want to be more specific, you want to go off the F's and the assonance there. But anyway, it's I think that's just very definitive of what we're doing here. It's very fulfilling to be like this, and there's that's why I think it's funny that this Christian was so Christian-esque. I guess I'll put. Just because it was, especially with Miranda, because you saw her trying to fulfill herself, and she actually moved out from a fulfilled life in fellowship with a kind of her second family, and then her biological family fell apart, and she sought fulfillment in popularity and things in an audience or on a stage, and that changed for her as she saw. I was like, I was only fulfilled whenever I had fellowship with this family, and I even pretended to be my best friend from that family, and I saw how people treated me and loved me because of that. And it's just very interesting dynamic with her. But I think that's it's so easy for us to think like we'll be fulfilled once we have money, once we have security, once just all these different things. Even like for me, a big situation is I'll be fulfilled whenever I'm married and maybe have kids and maybe, hopefully just a couple of years. That would be amazing and things like that. But like God doesn't call us to be fulfilled all the time. He calls us to fellowship, and I'm going to link it back to my pastor's sermon today, real quick. Is just how we tend to hold others hostage to our idea of community. That was something he said. We tend to have this idea of what our community, and even just our whole life should feel like, and we hold others hostage to that. If they don't fit that format, or if our church doesn't fit that format, we're likely to leave or just not be committed. Different responses to that, but I think that's a big flaw that it's just a natural tendency. We have this idea of what our lives are supposed to look like, what our church is supposed to look like, what our family and future is supposed to look like, and if something doesn't fit that, we don't let it in. And Augie was a great example of something that just didn't fit in. But again, he pushed.
broke the artificial mold to something
Exactly.
that was real.
Yep, he punched his way out of the box, a little box everyone was putting him in.
Literally.
Yeah.
So that's my takeaway.
That's awesome.
That's interesting.
And kind of before we wrap up, I do want to make this point that because I was in 5th grade and I wasn't bullied heavily, but like I just have memories where like I would be terrified of going to school. I was just terrified, and I just want to say that it's unfortunately not every story ends as positively as Augie's does, where everyone rallies around the student. But at the end of the day, it really kind of going back to what we originally talked about, being nice and being kind. I don't know what was done to you in school or what you've been through, but maybe you didn't get a happy ending with how school went, but it's still an opportunity for you to be kind to other people. You can take those hard experiences and you can turn that into empathy. And I loved the courage that her mom and Augie's mom and dad had, where they were able to look him straight and square in the face and be like, hey, my opinion, I'm your mother. That's the only opinion that matters because I know you the best. And people, when they get to know you, they will like you because they see your heart. So really, she was able to give them that strong talk. So my encouragement would be those who are listening, who you've had rough experiences, is to use that as fuel to love other people, to empathize with them, to give them hope and give them courage because they need it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd love to keep going, but we've got to wrap it up.
Right.
So, but we definitely want you guys back on the podcast whenever you want.
Yes.
It's been a great conversation. So
Thanks for having me.
we have a tradition of just signing off. So we just want to go around the table.
All right. Well, this is David.
Adam.
Brian.
Cam.
And Jerry. All right. Well, have a good night, guys. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Yes.
Happy Mother's Day.
See ya.